everyone, welcome to the AngularJS video on Intellipaat. Now, before we discuss today's agenda, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon. Now, let's move to the agenda point. We'll start with OOPS concepts, then we'll move to encapsulation, that is data hiding, and then types of access modifiers, inheritance, polymorphism, and ending with interface versus class.
So let us start with what are the OOPS concepts. So before I talk about the concept, let me talk about the OOP. It stands for Object Oriented Programming. So you can think of, everything is an object. So which all the concepts it should follow, that is what we are going to talk about. The very first concept is known as the inheritance. This is nothing but something called parent-child relationship. This you must have observed in the real life also. So each child is going to inherit the properties from his or her parents. So that is what inheritance. How to implement inheritance in TypeScript, that very soon we are going to check out. Let us talk about the second OOPS concept, which is nothing but the encapsulation. Short way we can say it is a data hiding. We know very well the class is nothing but it contains the data members and methods as well as the constructor. So this is a class is a kind of, you can think of it as a capsule which is having the variables and method. Now the thing is how you are going to hide your data members from the outside world, that is what known as the encapsulation. Clear? So these variables should not be accessible to everyone. There should be some, there could be some private properties, private datas, right? So we should not display everything to the entire world, outside world. So how to hide the variables or the data members from the outside world, that is what known as the encapsulation. We are going to see very soon how to implement encapsulation also. Let us talk about the very third concept is polymorphism, which says one thing in many forms. That is what the literal meaning of the same. So here the example what I have taken as, say someone is asking us, speak. So the way, how we are going to speak, the way how dogs are going to speak, the way how cats are going to speak, everything is going to be completely different. But everyone is speaking. So one thing is speaking but in a different way. That is what known as polymorphism. So we'll be seeing again very soon how to implement polymorphism in the programming language. Fourth concept is abstraction. What is abstraction? It's nothing but you need to decide which all the things are important for your program. So we had taken a call like which should be the variables. So we created the variables like employee name, the ID, address, contact number, all those things. So whatever, the things are necessary, we have taken only those parts. We haven't taken everything from the user. So that is what abstraction. We are going to concentrate what is necessary. We are not going to collect all the unnecessary, all the information. Only the necessary information will be collecting. So suppose it is a person class. So they have just collected the name and surname. So it depends what class and which all the data members you have to, choose. That is what known as the abstraction. So let us talk about each OOPS concept in depth. So the very first one which I'm going to talk about, what is encapsulation. It says a class can control the visibility of its data members to the members of other classes. This capability is termed as data hiding or encapsulation. So how we are going to control the visibility of its data member or the member function to the members of other classes, that is what known as the encapsulation. Now how to achieve this in your programming language? It can be achieved by using something called access specifiers or the modifiers. So let me read out this line. Object orientation uses the concept of access modifiers to implement the concept of encapsulation. That's very true. What is access modifier? They define the visibility of a class data member outside its defining class. I'll show you with the demo also. So before that, let us talk about what are the different types of access modifier we have it. The very first one is public. So the moment I say public, it means it is accessible to everyone. Everyone inside the class, outside the class, everyone can access. Obviously, but it is inside the project, right? Next is the protected. What is protected? Meaning is it is going to be accessible inside the class, those data members, and moreover, all the subclasses, they can also access those protected data members. only the subclasses, not the other classes, not other individual classes. It's only the other, or it's only the subclasses of the same class can access. And the very last is the private. Private, the meaning is very clear. Only within the class it is going to be accessible, not anyone else can access. Not the subclass, not anything from outside the class, no one else can access. Now what do you think? We have created few data members, right? What kind of access modifiers they are? Okay. See here, I have created employees class, right? F name, L name, all those things. But nowhere we mentioned the kind of access modifier. This class is over, right? This class is over here. And I have created the object, all those things. Can I access any of your data members from here? Let me just see. Using object, you can access the data members as well as the methods also. Let me try to access F name. Let us see, are we able to access or not? So as it is a TS file, let us ask the compiler, transpiler, please compile my file. So once this is over, we'll ask node to execute it, because the node is something which can execute the .js file outside the browser also. And see, I am able to access Harry. So what do you think? F name is which kind of variable or data member? So it is something like when we don't mention anything, no access modifier, the meaning is it is public. It is going to be accessible anywhere outside the class. Make sense? Now the moment I say it is private, check out now. The moment I say it is private, immediately I am getting the error. As the reason is, it is a first of all, TypeScript code is nothing but it is a compiled language. So immediately it is giving that. Just put the cursor there. It says property F name is private and only accessible within the class employees. Make sense? Now these two see, if we don't mention anything, by default it is public. If we tell something like, private, so obviously it is going to be private, going to be accessible only inside the employees class. See, this F name is accessible here. There's no problem. The reason is it is inside the employees class. Okay, now how to check out for the protected? The moment I say protected, what it says? Property F name is protected and only accessible within the class and it's a subclasses. So F name can be accessible only inside the class as well as the subclasses. So let us, write an example of inheritance. TypeScript supports the concept of inheritance. Inheritance is the ability of a program to create new classes from an existing class. So that's what we are going to do as we want to check out the demo of protected. So I have to implement inheritance first. Okay, so let me create another class called, say, suppose managers, which extends. Okay, so to implement inheritance, we are going to use a keyword called extends employees. Now suppose managers class is, suppose it is having one more data member, say it is, the number of employees working under him. So as he is a manager, so he will be having one project and, the number of employees working under him. So let me create a variable called number of employees. Okay, and let me create some methods also here. Say get me first name, something which is going to return you, sorry, let us make it a string so that it will return something. I need to return something. Okay, now see here. Okay, suppose I want to access again F name, I want to access, right? So can I say here return this dot F name? I'll explain you how this is working. Let me just remove, instead of calling obj.fname, obviously I cannot call outside the class. It can be called only inside the subclasses as it's a protected one. So instead of saying obj.fname, let me call this method, and now I'll explain you what we are doing. Okay, so I have to create the managers class object. Okay, let me explain now what we are doing. So we have created the managers class object, obj.getFullName, right? And obj.getMe first name. Get full name is defined inside which class? It is defined inside the superclass or the parent. But still, see, I am able to access. There is no compile time error, right? There is no compile time error. and get me first name belongs to which class? The subclass. And what it is doing, it is trying to access your protected data member using this keyword. So it looks like this fname is defined inside this manager's class as it's a protected variable. Make sense? Okay. So let me run this. Again, first TSC and then after your node. And I hope we are getting the output. Yes, Harry is coming up. Get me first name is showing you the output. Okay. Yeah. So if I had made it as a private, obviously there will be an error. There will be a compile time error. Yeah, it's here. And when the moment I say it is a public, so no need to tell it public explicitly. By default it is public only. Then there is no error. Okay. When I say protected, then it is going to be accessible only inside the class as well as inside all the subclasses. Make sense? So that's how we implement inheritance, and the other thing is encapsulation we have implemented. That is what polymorphism, as the literal meaning of polymorphism, as I already told, it's one thing in many forms. Next is it can be achieved by two things. One is method overloading, another one is overriding. Method overloading is something when the same method is going to be defined in the same class but with a different set of parameters. Okay. Say suppose I am taking the same example. Get me first name, right? Now suppose going to write the same method name. Yeah. See, immediately the same method declaration, if I am writing, it is saying duplicate function implementation. Got it? But what if I am going to pass some, say suppose some, not int, sorry, it is number, right? So I'll say here, some variable id colon number. Let us talk about the polymorphism. What is polymorphism? It is something, one thing in many forms, and it can be achieved by method overriding. So let us understand first what is method overriding. Method overriding is something, a same method is going to be defined in superclass as well as in the subclass. Why do we need this? Same method definition, same method declaration, but the implementation is going to be different. Say suppose in the subclass I want to write some other business logic, right? So what I can do, instead of depending upon the superclass method, I can write my own method with the same method signature and with the different implementation. That is what known as method overriding. Now think about how one thing in many forms here is going to be achieved. Same method is going to behave in different ways. In superclass it is going to give me some other output. In subclass it is going to give me some other output. Let us talk about how to implement same in our employees example. So here you must have seen this is what is coming. Let me just clear the screen. Yeah. Okay. So managers, it is having this method. Yeah. Now say suppose this is get full name method, right, which is there in the which class? In the superclass, right? Now same method I am going to write in subclass but with the different implementation. Say suppose get full name, I want I don't want this f name plus last name. Say suppose I want to do something else also. I want to add here plus Mr. or Mrs. something like this I want to do, right? So I'll say here Mr. plus. That's it. So get full name implementation is going to be different from here. Both method names are same. They are returning the same data type, but here the implementation is different, right? So this is what known as the method overriding. Now which method is going to be called the moment I say get full name? Okay. See here which class method we are creating, which class object. It is a managers, which is nothing but the superclass. So the moment I say obj.get full name, so which method is going to be called? Let us check out here. TSC and the class name, the TS file name. And we'll say node my first class dot ts dot js, sorry, dot js. See here the output is coming as Mr. Harry Potter. So which class, which method it is calling? It is calling this get full name. The moment, say suppose if this method is not there, let me remove this method from here. And again same code, no changes. And let us see the output here. This time I'm just getting Harry Potter. This time it is calling superclass. But when we have in the subclass the same method signature, it is going to call the subclass method. Make sense? So when earlier why get full name was calling your superclass, because there is an inheritance. It is extending the employees class. That's the reason it is having the access of get full name. But the moment I define the same method in the subclass, it is going to call your subclass overridden method. This is what known as the method overriding. The same method signature is going to be overridden by the different implementation. Make sense? So that's how we implement polymorphism in terms of TypeScript. Now let us talk about the abstraction. Abstraction is the property by virtue of which only the essential details are displayed to the user. So I've already given the example of a car. With respect to the driver, we need different details. With respect to a mechanic, I need the different details. Abstraction is achieved by the interfaces in terms of TypeScript. So let us talk about what is an interface. Interfaces are declared using the interface keyword and may only contain method signature. Abstraction is a property by virtue of which only the essential details are going to be displayed to the user. I've already taken an example of a car. With respect to driver, we need the different details. In terms of mechanic, he needs the different details. Abstraction can be achieved by the interfaces. So now let us talk about what is an interface. Interfaces are declared using the interface keyword and may only contain method signature and the variable declaration. So here it is going to have just a method signature, as well as it can have the variable declaration also. An interface is an abstract type that is used to specify a behavior that classes must implement. So it is just going to tell, there should be a method if you want to use my interface, but you can implement in your own way, but make sure that method should be there in your class. They are very much similar to protocol. You need to follow, means the nothing but you should have that protocol or a method in your class, but the implementation can be yours. Fourth point is interfaces cannot be instantiated, but rather it can be implemented. So you cannot create an object of an interface, but obviously if you are using interface, you need to implement. Let us look at the interface syntax. It's very simple. Interface, the interface name, it can have the variable declaration, as well as this is what? A method. Just check out, this is nothing but it's a method, signature. There is no implementation. This is what known as the arrow method. It is a part of ES6 feature, one of the ES6 feature, arrow functions we say it is. Left side we write the input parameters and right side we mention what is the return type of your function. It could be void or some other data type. Left side, as I said, here in this scenario, the 0 input parameter and the return type is a string. Now we'll check out how to use interface in the classes. So in the same example, I'm going to modify. I'm going to create a interface. Let us take the same interface name as persons. Okay. Now which is just having a method, just method declaration or method signature. I'll just say hi colon. I need to tell what is the input parameter and what is the output parameter. So as I already said, left side of this arrow symbol is input parameter, right side of this thing is nothing but the return type of the same. So that's it. Okay. Now if I'm going to use this interface, implements, using implements keyword, you are going to use the interface. So see, the moment I say I want to use this persons, okay, just a sec. The moment I am telling, I want to use this person's interface, it is giving me the error. What it says, class employees incorrectly implement interface persons property say hi is missing. So I have to implement this say hi method. Yeah. So let me implement the same. I'll say here say hi as it's a method. And in my case, it is a 0 input parameter, return type is a string, so I need to write the same. I'll say here return, hello from say hi method. Okay. Now this is done. Let us call this method. Okay, you can write the same method. I am doing the method overriding here. Just check out say hi is defined here, and say hi is defined. You can mention in your subclass also, as there is no input parameter. So let me remove it. Okay, so hello from the say hi method from the subclass also. Now we need to call it with the 0 input parameter. So let me remove this. Okay, we'll just execute now. So it is first TSC, my first class, then after node, and my first class.js, and check out we are getting the output. So what we had tried for, from this we were saying say hi for the managers class, and then the this is super class say hi, and this is for the subclass say hi, and we are getting the different SOP also, hello from say hi method from the subclass and hello from say hi method from the superclass. Make sense? So that's how you can use interface. We created interface, and further we are going to implement it, right? So the moment I say I want to implement, so whatever methods you have mentioned there as a only method signature, you need to implement in your classes. Okay, so I have done the same. This interface is just having a method which is having a 0 input parameter. What if you want to pass some parameter here? So first of all, obviously you have to declare here say name colon string. This is just a variable name, right? Name is just underscore name is just a variable name. Now wherever I'm using, I'm calling this say hi thing, I have to implement it in the same way. Now this is having this is going to take a single input parameter, so I'll just mention the same colon string. Again, underscore name is just a variable name. Okay, don't get confused. Okay, let me write underscore name 1 in case there is any confusion. Just a variable name plus, I'll say here plus this. Similarly for the other one also I'll say hi underscore name 2 to avoid the confusion. Different variable name altogether plus. Okay, now while calling I have to pass some name here, right? Some string. I'll say here Harry, and down I'll say here as Peter. Let us run it. First TSC and then say node, and check out we are getting exactly the same output what we were expecting for. So now say hi method is having a single input parameter. Make sense? So that's how you create interface and tell, you can tell the, as I said, interface can have methods, method declaration, as well as it can have the variables, and further those variables you can use it in the classes where you want to implement it. So this was all about, how to use interface in the class. Let me come to the next slide, which is nothing but interfaces versus classes. Check out here, class we know very well. What is a class? It defines a new type, wherein we are just going to have the properties with the implementation. What does it mean by the properties with the implementation? It is nothing but your data members. See, till now we always say fname colon string, right? So we never had given the value. So that also can be done. So fname colon string equal to something you can give. That is what the implementation. Data members with the implementation. Anyways, methods with implementation we have already seen. Classes can be instantiated, whereas in case of interface, again this is also defines a new type, but the properties or the data members, you just have to tell the signature. You cannot assign the value, right? The next is again the methods, only the signatures, you cannot implement it. And moreover, interfaces cannot be instantiated. Make sense? Now let us move to the next slide, which is nothing but encapsulation versus abstraction. In short, I'm going to explain the difference between both. Encapsulation we have achieved using the access modifier, whereas abstraction can be achieved by using interfaces. Encapsulation is data hiding, wherein you are going to hide your information, while abstraction is detail hiding. I hope it makes sense after discussing the interfaces. In interface, we just tell, we are not giving the implementation of the method, we are just defining the method or declaring the method. In an encapsulation, while encapsulation, it groups together data and methods that act upon the data, whereas the data abstraction deals with exposing the interface to the user and hiding the details of implementation. So as I already gave the example of abstraction as a car mechanic and car with a driver. Okay, so we are just hiding the details of implementation and we are just exposing the interface to be used. So with respect to driver, again the same thing. A driver is just applying the brake, internally doesn't know what is the implementation. So that is what, the difference between encapsulation versus abstraction. So with this, actually we have covered all the OOPS concepts. So as you can see, TypeScript enables all these. Using TypeScript, you can use all those OOPS concepts in your programming language, and it's very easy to use with the keywords and the syntax. And TypeScript, you can feel it is a bit of a syntactic sugar sprinkled on the top of JavaScript, and that's the reason in the many development scenarios you can use TypeScript OOPS concept. Okay, so that is what all about OOPS concept, interfaces, classes, objects all together. That's it, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides full stack web development course in collaboration with ENICT IIT Guwahati. The course link of which is given in the description below.